It began as a simple experiment. A few scientists, a table, and one black crow. No training, no tricks, just an impossible challenge placed before a creature everyone thought was ordinary. But in the next few minutes, something happened inside that room. Something no one could explain. Every camera was rolling. Every scientist stopped talking. Because the bird wasn't reacting, it was thinking. Whatever that crow did next would change how the world sees intelligence forever. Years ago at the University of Oxford, a small team of behavioral scientists set out to explore the limits of animal intelligence. They had studied dolphins, chimps, and even parrots, but crows. To most people, they were just noisy black birds seen around trash bins and trees. Ordinary, common, unremarkable. But the researchers knew something the world didn't, that behind those sharp black eyes was a spark, something far more complex than instinct. So they designed an experiment, a puzzle that would test logic, memory, and reasoning, the kind of thinking once believed to exist only in humans. In the center of the lab stood a transparent box. Inside the box was a small piece of food, visible but completely out of reach. Next to it on the table lay two tools, one short stick and one longer stick. But there was a twist. The long stick was locked behind bars, and only the short one could reach it. To get the food, the crow would have to use the short stick to pull out the long stick, and then use that long stick to finally grab the food. No animal had ever done this before. It required planning, the ability to imagine a sequence of actions before performing them. The scientists expected confusion, frustration, maybe even failure. After all, could a creature with a brain smaller than a walnut possibly understand a two-step puzzle? Then came the subject of the experiment, a calm, alert, jet-black crow named Betty. Her feathers shimmered under the fluorescent light as she stepped into the room. The scientists pressed record. Betty tilted her head, examining the setup before her. First, she hopped toward the box, peering through the clear walls at the food inside. Then she noticed the sticks. She touched one with her beak, the short one, and tried reaching the food. Too short. She paused, completely still. Her bright eyes scanned the second stick behind the bars. And then, without hesitation, she made her move. Betty picked up the short stick and carefully inserted it through the metal bars. She poked, pulled, and nudged, until finally the longer stick slipped free. The scientists gasped. She dropped the short stick, grabbed the longer one, and approached the box again. With precision, she inserted it through the hole, angled it toward the meat, and pulled. The food slid out smoothly. The room went silent. In less than 10 minutes, Betty had done something extraordinary, something no animal had ever done on its own. She had used one tool to get another tool and then used that to complete her goal. It wasn't luck. It wasn't trial and error. It was reasoning. The scientists were stunned. One of them whispered, she understood the problem. To humans, it might seem simple, but to the scientific world, this was groundbreaking. Until that day, only humans and great apes were believed capable of such complex, sequential thinking. But Betty, with her small black beak, had just joined that list. News spread fast. Headlines around the world began to appear. Crow solves puzzle designed for humans. Tiny bird, big brain. Proof that intelligence wears feathers. People couldn't believe it. A crow, the same kind seen flying over cities every day, had just changed how scientists defined intelligence. But for the researchers, this was only the beginning. They wanted to know just how far Betty's intelligence could go. So they created a new challenge, even harder than before. This time there was no stick, no easy path, just a small wire and a bucket of food deep inside a narrow tube. The wire was straight and useless. To reach the bucket, Betty would have to invent a solution, not just use a tool, but create one. They placed the wire before her. Betty examined it for a few seconds. Then, to everyone's astonishment, she bent the wire into a hook. Slowly, carefully, she lowered it into the tube, hooked the bucket's handle, and lifted it out. The room erupted in disbelief. Betty hadn't just solved a puzzle. She had created a tool from scratch, something even most primates fail to do without demonstration. This single moment shattered decades of assumptions about the limits of animal intelligence. scientists began to re-examine everything they knew about crows. They discovered that crows belonged to the corvid family, a group of birds including ravens, magpies, and jays, all capable of extraordinary reasoning. Their brains, though small, are densely packed with neurons, rivaling those of great apes. In fact, a crow's brain functions much like the human prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for decision-making, planning, and problem-solving. In the wild, these birds use tools every day. They strip leaves to create hooks, drop nuts on roads for cars to crack open, and even use sticks as spears to catch insects hiding in trees. They hide food in secret places and remember those locations for months. Some even hold grudges, recognizing human faces for years. One study found that crows could understand water displacement, the same principle behind Archimedes' experiment. When given a tube of water with food floating inside, crows dropped stones one by one to raise the water level and bring the food closer. Just like in the ancient fable, the crow and the pitcher. Each discovery revealed something deeper. That intelligence isn't defined by size or language, but by awareness, memory, and adaptability. Betty wasn't unique. She was proof of what her entire species could do when given a challenge worth solving. Over time, scientists learned that crows could plan actions several steps ahead. They could imagine the future, delay gratification, and even cooperate with other crows to complete a task. In some tests, they chose tools they might need later, showing foresight once thought to be uniquely human. So what does this mean for us? For centuries, humans believed we stood apart from the rest of nature, that our ability to think, reason, and plan made us special. But when a crow uses logic, memory, and creativity to solve problems, it reminds us of something humbling. That intelligence doesn't belong to us alone. It exists quietly in forests, above cities, and in the dark eyes of creatures we overlook every day. Betty never asked to be famous. She didn't solve those puzzles for praise or recognition. She did it because her mind was curious, because somewhere inside her, thought was alive. And maybe that's the purest kind of intelligence there is, the desire to understand. When the scientists released Betty back into her natural environment, she disappeared into the trees, a silent genius fading back into the wild. But her legacy didn't end there. Her experiments opened new doors for science, forcing researchers to ask harder questions about consciousness, awareness, and emotion in animals. Today, her story is more than just proof of intelligence. It's a reminder that we share this planet with minds we've barely begun to understand. Every crow that watches from a power line, every raven that hides its food, every magpie that stares back at its reflection, they're all part of a larger truth. Intelligence has no species. So the next time you see a crow sitting quietly on your window ledge, watching you with unblinking eyes, remember, it might be studying you too, wondering what you will do next.